are you? So a little bit of housekeeping. A little bit of delay. So bear with me as I'm trying to respond to some of your comments and engage with you. As always, you can join and share some of your stories. There should be a link down in the description box in the chat. If not, you can check out my Instagram page or Facebook, and you can get the link there, Deidre Sully, on both platforms. So, welcome to another Information with Deidre. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are talking about stress. So, today's discussion on stress is money, 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 money. Why do our finances and money stress us out? Because it's attached to everything we do. Money is just a part of all the ways that we move around. It helps us to get the things that we need and the things that we want, right? When it comes to stress, right? Like money's up there, but it's, like I said, also connected. So some of the things that we've talked about already, like job stress, money's connected to that. Some of the top things that cause stress, some of the life stressors are divorce, that costs money, marriage, that costs money, starting families, that costs money. Um, Housing, that costs money. You want to buy a car, that costs money. Entertaining yourself, that costs money. Sometimes, some of us know how to do things that cost a little bit of money, but they may take time, right? And for many of us, time is money. So it's connected to a lot of different things. And right now, I want to be clear, we're talking about that currency, the fiat currency that we're talking about that we use to consume and pay for a lot of the things that we do, whether it's we need it or we want it. So again, we're outside again, so I may be squinting, but that's so that you can see me. I will make sure to try to see you and some of your comments. Shalom to all of you coming into the chat. Hima Akuya, Sister Munira Baptiste, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about money and the way it stresses us out. If you missed it, you can join and share your story about like money and how it stresses you out in the chat below. There should be a link in there, and so I will add you to the stream if you want to share your story. So like I said, money is connected to everything, so that's why we stress about it. Yesterday was a big day for money, tax day. So I'm sure a lot of us are still a little bit stressed out about that. It's kind of traumatizing. So like I said, it's connected to a lot of other life events that can also be stressors for us sometimes. Divorce, marriage, starting families, things that happen with our families. Sometimes family members get ill, they get sick. That costs money because then we have to think about like, if we're going to be a caretaker, how can we take time away from our 9 to 5 and or not? How do we modify those things, the time? So that we can make sure that we do that. Do we have the funding to bring somebody in to take care of an ailing family member? So again, these are money. These are life things. Moving definitely costs money. If you're just moving down the street, that costs money, and it's never cheap. So those are the things that we have to think about. As I said, taxes, debit taxes. Taxes was yesterday. So there are a lot of us that are dealing with money and the movement of money right now. A big thing, COVID. A big thing that we were dealing with was COVID. Shalom, Sovereign Eats. A big thing that we're dealing with is COVID. We know the kind of funds and money that was lost for a lot of people. Many people lost their jobs. So that put a lot of folks under the threat of, like, what am I going to do for housing? What am I going to do for food? Room and board, those basic things. The 3 basic things that we need money for is food, shelter, clothing, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about, like, even though those are the stressors, money is the stressors, what are some of the things that are in place that will help to maybe alleviate those things? So I'm going to go over a few of those things today. So like I said, when it came to COVID, like a lot of things came to the forefront, not only with health, but with money and how we're affected by how it moves, which is not necessarily lost on any of us, right? But again, food, shelter, clothing, those are the things we're going to go over. And so really specifically, it's the food and shelter, because those are the things that are in place for what we need, and things that I've been gather together and find and disseminate to you. So, the example that I use, COVID, it really put a damper on like people when they lost their jobs, and then, how are we going to look for housing, or how are we going to maintain housing, right? So those are the things that happen, because when you don't have, housing, like, where's your head at, right? Like, can you even think about other things, like how much stress does that cause? You can't even think about where you're going to lay your night because you don't, maybe you don't have the money to pay for housing or something like that. It's cream, right? Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. So yeah. So what are some ways to address some of the things that have been going on? So here's some like real practical ways of kind of addressing or trying to help to, I guess, and for some people it would be solving, and others it would alleviate, some of those woes about finances and money. So the first thing, how have we all been affected? So there's number one, taxes was yesterday. So what are the things that we can do when it comes to like the IRS and taxes? So, and I'll make sure to put like links of all these resources down in the chat, in the description box. I'm sorry, I'll make sure to put links to these resources. So the first thing is taxes were extended. So for some of us, that was a relief, right? To like have at least a month the normal day, which is April 15th, to extending it to May 17th, which was yesterday. So for some of us or some of you, like it's like get that ball rolling. So that extension was one thing. The other thing were the stimulus payments. So those were definitely assistance that people definitely needed to help with finances. So these were done through a series of acts that were passed. Two were passed last year, so there were two stimulus checks from last year, and there's actually a third one that's coming out. And these stimulus checks are also called economic impact payments. So those are some of the things that have been put in place. So the first stimulus check that we got, it was the from the CARES Act. So that was the coronavirus aid, relief, and um, economic security act. And so that was the first stimulus check. The second one, which was toward the end of the year, that was the COVID related tax relief, and that was like a smaller check. So there's a third one that's coming out. Excuse the truck in the background, we are outside. So there is actually a third one that's coming out that is part of the ARPA, which is the let me look it up. It's the American Rescue Plan Act. So that is a third one. So you definitely want to go, and those are actually being disseminated now, based on whether you basically filed your taxes or not. So for those individuals who are eligible, who have also filed 2020 taxes, like checks have been rolling out now. So a site that you should go to check about if you're eligible, and if your payment is coming, you can go to the IRS.gov, and as soon as you open the page, you can click on the mid left corner, and it says "Get my payment." So you can look that up and see whether you're eligible for that third economic impact payment or stimulus paycheck. So that's one thing. So another thing for many of us that connect, I'm always talking to NPH students. So that means I was once a student. So what does that mean? Student loans. So for people who are students or borrowers who are still in the repayment, a way that if you're not taking advantage, or if you didn't know, you are eligible. You may be eligible if your loans are federally backed. Your school loans are federally backed. You may be eligible for the federal forbearance, and it's also interest free, because we know the difference between a forbearance loan and a deferment. The deferment, it stops with no interest, but forbearance, that interest is still collecting. Those dollar signs are still rolling up. So the forbearance that the Department of Education has allowed for student loan borrowers who are eligible have been extended to September 30th of 2021. So, and they are zero interest. If you do have a loan that is like the FELP or the Perkins loan, those loans that are not federally backed or owned by the the U.S. Department of Education, you're not eligible. Those are actually private loans. So private loans are not eligible for the forbearance unless there is some sort of plan or activity or program from the financial institution that holds their loan. So you may want to check, if you do not have federally backed loans and they're private, you may want to check with your financial institution to see if there's some sort of program where you can get on some sort of deferment plan or forbearance. But those of us, you out there who do have federally backed loans that are administered and owned by the Department of Ed, you can visit Studentaid.gov to check out your eligibility and see where you kind of fall. So again, we're going over different programs and plans that are out there to help us kind of alleviate and reduce some of that stress that we have around money. So these are about the programs that are out there. So that's for the students. What is the main one? So what about small businesses, right? So for those of us who maybe have been working for a while and we've established our own businesses, we've established our own businesses. So there's another place that you can go. It's SBA.gov. I'll say it again because I started the video with my retainers in. SBA.gov. It is the Small Business Association. And there are different loans for small business owners to take advantage. So there's several different things that the Small Business that the Small Business Administration has put out with regards to helping individuals and small business owners. So there's about four that I'm going to go over very, very briefly. So number one, there is the what everybody kind of knows about and took advantage of. The more popular one was the PPP, and that was the Paycheck Protection Program. So that was for businesses to kind of be able to get assistance, and it is a forgivable loan. It actually starts out as a loan, and if you can show that you if you're eligible for the forgiveness part of it, it kind of turns into a grant, if you will. So that's the what is widely known as the PPP, paycheck program, paycheck. Oh my goodness, I just said it. The paycheck program, PPP loan, and it's for businesses to keep payroll going, basically, so they can keep employees on payroll. Because we know what happened with COVID, and this was a result of COVID. We know what happened with COVID. People lost their jobs because these businesses were not able to keep people on staff and on payroll because nobody's coming out. So for those businesses that maybe they're not necessarily like service oriented, and they do need to make sure they have their employees, because people were still shopping their heads off, right? So shopping their heads off from home and online. So it allowed businesses to keep employees on payroll and kind of keep things moving and help their employees kind of continue to be able to make a living and have a livelihood, to be able to afford things like pay their rent and pay buy food and things that they needed for their families. So the PPP was definitely a help for a lot of people. There was also the EIDL, which is the economic injury disaster loan. So that was also for small businesses and nonprofits, and you had to show that you were not able to pay certain bills and do things as a result of COVID. So again, all of these things have eligibility. Then there were two more. The one regarding, like, the shuttered venue, so places that Broadway, places that had to close down, and these venues that had to close down as a result of COVID, and then also like restaurant revitalization. So those are four things that really came from the Small Business Association. So if you've been kind of under a rock, if you have not checked some of those things out, make sure you check. Thank you, Sovereignty's Paycheck Protection. I said it and then I lost it, kind of went out of my head. So the Paycheck Protection Program. Then there's the economic injury disaster loan. Then there's the shuttered venue loans and the restaurant revitalization program. So, and remember, the PPP is what they call a forgivable loan. So it is a loan, but it's the opportunity to kind of turn sort of like into a grant where you have like a loan forgiveness. So that is the Small Business Association. So far, we have gone over three places where we can go to kind of alleviate some of our many, many, many woes. So that is the IRS.gov, Studentaid.gov, and the Small Business Association, SBA.gov. So what are some other things? So another great place to visit is actually USA.gov, because it gives a lot of information on disaster relief, and it almost is like a one-stop shop for going to some of these places. You still have to go to these places to, make sure you're checking eligibility. But if you don't remember anything else, you can actually go to USA.gov, and it has all these different links to all the different things. So like specifically what I want to talk about, remember we talking about what is 3 things we need: food, shelter, clothing. But we're really going over like the food and the shelter, because those are a lot of the things, a lot of the programs that were created was to help people kind of, figure out housing and figure out like how they're going to get food. So USA.gov has a lot of good information on benefits that people can get to continue to feed their families, as well as like, the housing. So, some other websites that kind of come out of going to USA.gov that also live on their own. So when it comes to food, this is really based on like the state programs, because this is where we talk about the food stamps and SNAP benefits. There's also different programs within states and municipalities where you can go to food pantries, and places are giving away food. I know in a town near me, they are providing, there's like every week they are in there's like a like a sort of a community center, and they give away food on like either Thursdays and Fridays, and the lines are around the corner in there to help households with food. So there's a lot of food programs. And again, as I said, there's also SNAP, which is the food stamps. And these programs are there for help for people who need it. Yes, there's a whole other side to people who are abusing the system, but these programs are in place for people who need it. So again, like these are places where you can go to make sure you check your eligibility, and if you need that, they are there for you to utilize. So that's for food. Other things that you may need that also are on the USA.gov is when we talk about housing. So I kind of mentioned housing before, and that being a fallout right from COVID. And there's number one, there was a moratorium put on housing, on evictions, because if people are losing their jobs, then where's the money coming from to pay rent? The majority of people are at least 2 paychecks away from being homeless. That is the truth, because most people are living, they're paying more for rent than anything. It's the largest expense that they have. And that's evidence based. So, housing can cause a lot of stress. Like I said, if you don't, and especially if you have a family, if you don't know where you're all going to lay your head at night, that can cause a lot of stress, because, right, we're talking about mental health. And so these are all of the things that do lead to high stress levels, when you're worried about money, which filters into everything else. So, some housing programs. So, if you are renting, if you're a renter, you can visit the you can visit HUD, which is also gives rental assistance, right? So HUD is HUD.gov, and that is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So they have programs that also offer rental assistance for people who are renting. You can also go to the CDC.gov. You can also find this on USA.gov, but CDC.gov has like a template and a letter if you need to. They have all sorts of tools and things for renters to provide to landlords for, help and assistance, like language, regarding the moratorium, to kind of help you if you're having issues with your landlord. And again, everything, even though these tools and assistance is available, they always come with that caveat of eligibility. So definitely, this is why I'm giving you the websites. Make sure you're visiting these websites and reading through, so you can determine if you're eligible or not, if you are having some of these issues, and if you need to use some of these programs and services. So also with housing is, so we talked about HUD with rental assistance. The CDC also is the agency that declared the moratorium on evictions. Also, for housing, if you, similar to the student aid, if you purchase your home with FHA loans, so that's the Federal Housing Authority, so it means you have a federally backed loan, you may be eligible for a forbearance on your mortgage. So again, these are places that you have to check out. So make sure you visit HUD to look through whether you're a renter or you are a homeowner with a mortgage. Make sure you're visiting these places to find out your eligibility for rental assistance or either a forbearance on your federally backed mortgage. I'm going to take a pause for a second because we had some people join us. So greetings, Sister Kashia. Okay, just one person. It's okay. So greetings, Sister Kashia. Shalom to you. Yes, hit the like button. Um, so right now, so I'll just do a recap. So we talked about tax extension, also another economic impact payment that is available. So that's all with like your taxes and like economic stimulus or stimuli. Because this is the third one. We talked about aid for college students, and student aid borrowers, people who are still in repayment. So there's a forbearance that is in place. So if you have a federally backed loan, check your eligibility. I know it has been a great help for me. Also, one thing to know, if you are on the income, if your loan payments are determined by income, and you're wondering if it counts to the loan forgiveness, it does. So just make sure you definitely go on the website. So all of this time we're in this forbearance period. This time, this suspended forbearance, it does count toward your income directed repayment plan. So just make sure you visit to make sure that you're eligible for that if you were in that in the loan forgiveness, because we know that there was a whole thing around that, and there's also still a whole thing around like who's gonna get their loans forgiven. I'm like, I'm just waiting to be part of that group. So then we also talked about the financial aid in place for small businesses. There's the PPP loan, the IDL loan, shutter venue program, and the restaurant revitalization program. And then we just finished talking about the housing situation. So what you can get for food and housing, food and shelter. So the food is really because that's done through like Medicaid and Medicare. So there's like the SNAP benefits. So if you are eligible for some of those, encourage you to go get it. Go do it. These programs are in place just for that. And then housing. So there's like the moratorium on eviction. So that is actually sanctioned by the CDC. And then there's the rental assistance from HUD, as well as the mortgage forbearance for federally backed loans. If you have an FHA loan, you might be eligible for mortgage forbearance. Um, so I think that's about it. So we talked about food and shelter, and actually we did talk about not clothing, but the other piece that's like very consumer heavy, which is like the shuttered venues, which is like entertainment, even restaurants, like because we don't need to eat out. So these are some of the things, like as we're looking at these programs, we really have to be thoughtful, which I think a lot of people are probably doing, making that decision and being discerning about what's a need versus a want. Um, and starting there really does help to kind of help us kind of manage in our heads, how to address some of the financial woes. I know it helps for me. The final thing that I want to say is, another thing that definitely helps is to think about financial advisor, right? And so we all can't afford, we all don't have the luxury of getting a financial advisor. So that's why I wanted to lead with, the programs that are in place that are there for people, that most people can, take advantage of, and the things that are easily accessible and low hanging fruit for many people. So, those are the things and the ways that we can start to maybe think about how we reduce or alleviate, and maybe for some of us, eliminate some of those financial woes, because like I said, money is connected to a lot of things that we do. And so um, when there's stressors, sometimes money is always sitting there in the background like a little gremlin, waiting to stress you out. So, and as we talked about, when we have those stressors, it puts us in that fight or flight mode, and it can start to affect our immune system and brain function, and everything else just starts to go out of whack. And then how good are we then? So, yeah. So today we talked about money, and money stressing us out. So how do we address that? So thank you so much for joining us. That is all we have for Information with Deidre. Join us on Thursday for our career spotlight, where we'll be talking to a social worker and counselor and how that fits in the public health field. And for our final video, Information with Deidre, for the month of May, for Mental Health Month, which will be next Tuesday, we at 6 p.m. We will be talking about the final thing: what stresses us out, what puts it all together, social media. All the stuff that we just watch and take in and consume, and how it just makes us insane in the membrane. So until then, I'll see you in the forward. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us. Peace.